Hello and welcome to another edition of After Hours. My name is Steve Walters.
I'm Steve Harper.
All right, and in today's episode we're going to talk about getting business.
I'm assuming you probably mean getting listings, finding buyers, that kind of thing, or how.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, all right.
So let's dig in by discussing what's working for you right now
Within the brokerage.
What's
happening and taking
what's happening
place
right now.
Well, you know, the best business that comes in the door, we all know, is referral business.
Correct.
That is the very best that you can get. And as you know, I think I mentioned in another episode, I recently got to pay out the biggest referral fee I've ever paid out to someone for sending me a client, which ended up being a listing this year, will end up being another listing next year. So it worked out fantastic. But referral business is the best. So obviously, if you can build upon someone who knows your business, who understands what you do, who you've worked with in the past, that's always the best. You know, and then there's marketing campaigns for listing, and then of course we utilize the golden referral method, and we utilize that within our brokerage, and we talk about it within our training. So I would say those are the components we should talk about here today.
Okay.
And just to jump right in, let's talk about getting listings. You know, getting listings. Let's talk about the fact that we know that the best come from referrals. So that kind of, I guess, takes us to the golden referral method.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what that is?
The golden referral method, and again, if you haven't seen that part of our training, make sure, if you're a member especially, go through and find that in the lead generation and marketing portion of the CPP or the commercial property practitioner training. If not, you know, in summary, the golden referral method is basically doing for others without expectation. Really is what it comes down to. I mean, if we want to just get real world and wipe away, I don't know what I said in the training. It was far more eloquent than that, but it's
just slightly.
It's
just slightly.
Yeah, but the reality is that's all it is. It's doing for others and never asking for a referral. You know, I mean, how many of you have taken those calls, and some of you have probably made them, where you're calling up saying someone saying something that you know darn well it sounds canned. You know, you either are saying this or someone's saying to you, you know, gosh, you know, I hope I did a good job for you, or I know I did a good job for you, or we sure did a great job on that. Is there anyone that you can think of that might be able to benefit from my services? When you say words like that, or when I hear words like that, I mean, don't you instantly go to a place of defense? I mean, we all want to buy. The whole world wants to buy, but no one wants to be sold. No one wants to be led. No one wants to be drugged.
Well, and Steve, people want to refer business.
They do.
But they don't want to be forced to do it, or they don't want to feel uncomfortable about it. They want it to flow very naturally, in my experience.
So with the golden referral method, really what you're doing is you're utilizing your current database. You're looking at the people that you do business with on a regular basis. Your insurance agent, your financial partner, the guy who's handling your Roth IRAs, your 401k, your attorney, your friends, your colleagues, the people in your business, the people that you're connected with on LinkedIn, the people in your sphere of influence, maybe even other brokers, believe it or not, in your area. Especially if you're specializing in commercial real estate and maybe you know they're not. Why not take another agent to lunch once a week and then disarm them completely? And here's how you disarm them. You don't ask them for nothing. You don't talk about the business that you do. Here's what it would look like. It would look like me taking you to lunch, Steve, and then me sitting down with you saying, look, Steve, I bet you're wondering why I asked you to lunch today. I do have an ulterior motive. I always do. You probably have learned that about me. My ulterior motive right now is to find out how I can help you with your business. You know, I found that helping other people with my business ultimately helps mine grow. So I want to help you with your business. I don't know, Steve. Are there people that I know that I can introduce you to that might help you grow your business, where you might even be able to help them? You know, say you sell insurance. Gosh, you know, is there some folks on, and if they can't, they say, well, you know, I do, but I'm not sure who that might be. You can help them out. You can say, gosh, aren't we hooked? Aren't we friends on Facebook? Are we friends on LinkedIn? Are we all hooked up? Why don't you look through my Facebook? Why don't you look through my LinkedIn? Why don't you look through my X, Y, or Z? See if any of those people fit your criteria, and then give me a call. Shoot me an email. Let me know which people you would like an introduction to, and I will arrange a personal introduction from me, either by phone or email. Now, a lot of times people are uncomfortable by phone, and I tend to default to the email. But what I do is I tell them, look, okay, you told me you want to meet John Smith and and Joe, right? You want to meet those two people, though they look great for you. So what I'm going to do, Steve, is I'm going to send you and Joe an email at the same time, introducing each other and suggesting that the two of you may be able to help each other moving forward. And hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if they don't get back to you, because then I will do a follow-up phone call to make sure that they know this is not some kind of spam. I truly think this is someone that you need to get to know. And make that the entire purpose of your lunch, or your meeting with them, or your coffee, or going to their office and just seeing them for 10 minutes. If you do that a couple of times a week throughout your database, man, your referral business will grow. And you and I both know, Steve, we've both been in the business long enough to know that referral business, when you start it, the chances of closing that are at least 2 times greater than someone that you brought in through a marketing technique.
It's maybe even more than that, more effective.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost you anything.
No.
It doesn't really.
Well, it does. You're going to have to spend some gas. You're going to have to spend some time, possibly a cup of coffee, maybe even have to spring for a lunch.
But you don't have to throw out 1,000 mailers to generate a referral.
No, absolutely not. And I would argue that your golden referral method is probably going to do better for you if you have any kind of database at all. Over time, it's going to do way better for you than any marketing. I don't think it necessarily replaces it. I do, we have a large marketing.
You always need to go after new business.
We have a large marketing.
Cold.
And right now we're going after listings. That's really our goal, is to go after a lot of listings, which is what we're going after. Now, in turn, that brings buyers, and we can talk about that in a minute too. But did you have any questions about the golden referral, or did we answer that?
I think we answered that. So now I know that one of, you had a couple core deals recently that really spawned into a whole lot of business. And it started with a representing a seller, right? Or actually, no, it was representing a landlord to do a lease.
Would you like me to talk about that?
So talk about how you went from working with this particular owner to working with the actual tenant, and now it's spawning off this humongous sort of tree branch of business.
You're right. It truly was. I'll tell you what it was I received a phone call from a CPA who I'm a LinkedIn friend with.
Okay.
That's how this began.
So that's how this all began.
That's how this all began. And I'll let you know exactly what deals have closed from this event. Okay. From this phone call, which was, Steve, I have this client, and they own a single tenant net leased investment. They own a Denny's. It's in Michigan. And they are trying to negotiate with the landlord, or excuse me, they're trying to negotiate with their tenant, their Denny's operator tenant, to renew the lease. But every time my client tries, every time I've tried, every time my client's attorneys tried, the tenant shuts us down. We're not getting anywhere. The negotiations, they fail. So she said, I don't know if you can help the client or not, but I'd like to have you talk to them. So I made a phone call. I reached out to the client, and quite frankly, all of us in real estate, we wear a lot of hats. And one of those hats we wear is we're negotiation experts. And if you're not, either get out of the business or learn to be one.
That's
what we do. Well, and also negotiation facilitation.
Right.
You can negotiate win-win deals. You can negotiate. It doesn't mean that it has to be a continuous, arduous process.
Right.
No, it's just a skill set. So I called him up, found out what his problem was, which he they kept irritating the tenant. So I said, look, You pay me X amount of dollars up front. I will take it over. I will see about securing your tenant. I can't promise you any results. Basically, I told him, and I'll tell you what I charged. I charged him $10,000. I charged him $10,000 up front. I said, you need to write me a $10,000 check, and I will see it through. I will take no commission. I will take no leasing commission off of it. I will represent you as the landlord. Now, the alternative that I can give you is you can not pay me, but you're going to pay me on whatever lease I get written. And the way that's going to go is that could end up being, you know, tens of thousands of dollars in leasing commission if I do it the normal way. But because he had a tenant already in place, an operator already in his location, an operator that had been there for 12 years previously, and before that it was a corporate store, you know, it seemed reasonable to just
flat rate.
Really just make it a flat rate,
that.
and I will see it through. Now, he obviously had some faith in me because he wrote the check for $10,000. That let me know that it was worth my time to deal with it. Okay, so I got a hold of the tenant, and push came to shove, we were able to put a deal together. What we ended up putting together, now I also found out that what this landlord truly wanted was to sell this asset. He was really ready to move on. But I also knew that the longer term I could get on the lease, the more valuable his property would be for resale, because he wanted to exchange into something closer to home, whatever his reasons were. So we were able to negotiate with a tenant. I was not able to get what I was trying to get, which was a 10, 15, 20-year lease. The tenant really refused to look beyond 5 years. But I got to know the tenant a little bit, like I do, and I made sure to take the time to do a lot of listening, which is a key. You know, you really, I do talk a lot, and those that know me know that I do, but I also listen very well when I'm in the right mode. You have to listen to what a tenant is telling you. So I listened, and you know, I could tell early on that it was a hill to die on to go to 5 years, because the attorney that was working for the landlord, the CPA that was working for the landlord, they were being hardcore on that point. And I started by disarming him. I said, look, what if I told you that I'll give you your 5 years? We won't even talk about that. What if I take that off of the table? What if I just say we'll yield that point? You can have your 5-year deal. Are you feeling better about moving forward with me? It was literally 2 emails after that, and we had a deal put together. By the end of the week, it was signed, and it was successful.
Wow.
Now, what I did is I set up a 5-year lease, and I gave them 3 5-year options to renew, with increases in each one of them. And I told my client, I said, look, I would like to sell this for you. He said, yeah, but it's got a 5-year lease. And I said, well, we're not going to sell it with 5 years left on their lease. Give me 3 months, 4 months. I will get back to you. But I'm going to be calling your tenant, and we're going to be offering something in the meantime, and I need you to authorize me to get rid of. I want you to authorize me to waive 3 monthly rent payments. Waive them, the base rent. I want you to waive the base rent for 3 months. He said, why would I do that? I just got the new lease. I don't want to get rid of 3 months of rent. I said, sure, but we can sell your 5-year net leased property, and we can do that. We can sell that one for about $800,000, or we can sell your 20-year net lease property or your 15-year net lease property, and we can get you $1.1 million for the deal. Which are you interested in, and is that worth $21,000, $22,000 worth of rent total over 3 months?
Seems like an easy
decision. And he said, yeah, you're authorized. If you can get him to do what you're saying, which was exercise those options now. So I waited 2 or 3 months until I knew from listening to him in the conversations that he was planning to do remodels on some of his other locations. Because Denny's Corporation requires every franchisee to do a full remodel every 7 years. So because of that, I knew he was going to be cash strapped in a couple of months. That's when I chose to make the call and say, hey, Mr. Tenant, remember me, Steve? He said, yeah, Steve, how you doing? Good talking with you. Things are going great. And, you know, in the middle of a store remodeling, Norton Shores, and it's going to be so cool, and I own that location. I said, really, you own that location? That's cool. So I put that in the back of my head, didn't discuss it all right there, but I certainly made a note of it while I was talking to him.
Absolutely.
And I said, all right, I said, I just wanted to call and let you know, look, I put the cards on the table. I said, the landlord is interested in selling this asset, and the asset's worth more with a longer term lease. If it would be of benefit to you right now, I can waive 2 months of rent. And what I would expect is for you to exercise the 3 options. And he said, well, I got to talk to my partner, but it sounds interesting to me. You're talking about saving me, $20,000 over 3 months. I'm putting money into these stores. Yeah, that sounds great. So he called me back and he said, no, he said, I'll exercise 2 for 2 options and 3 for 3 months rent. So he talked me up the other month, which I already had in my pocket. So I said, done. Sent the paperwork to him to sign. I sent it to the landlord to countersign. They signed it. I then, before I put the property on the market, I mentioned it to another broker who ended up bringing a buyer who ended up buying it for $1.1 million.
And that was a 20-year. Did you get it up to 20 years? Or
yes, because they exercised all 3 options. It was 19 years, 9 months, and some days is where the lease was at when we exercised the option.
Excellent.
So then, from that phone call, from that golden referral, I was able to call the tenant back up and say, I just emailed you a copy, the landlord signed it, you're good, you don't have to pay the next 3 months of rent, you're good to go. Okay? We were able to put it in contract and get it sold. I made sure that the sale date, that it actually closed after the 3 months of rent were paid. Didn't affect anybody. And we disclosed that we had done it. You disclose.
Absolutely.
You disclose. I know commercial's the Wild West. I know that there's not the consumer protections in law, the consumer protections in place that are in place for residential in commercial. However, you should always disclose what you know.
Transparency is key.
Disclose material facts. Don't be stupid. Just disclose material facts and encourage your clients to do the same. Well, that turned into another listing. I actually ended up listing the Norton Shore property and taught Joe, the tenant that was in that other location, that had this other location. I, in fact, had 5 locations throughout the area. And I taught him about a sale leaseback. We were then able to turn around and sell that building. Within about 60 or 70 days, it closed escrow from the time he said yes, and we were able to get him $1,425,000 on that building. Then he was turned on to another one in Traverse City, Michigan, where we were able to, I believe, secure him right about the same price point. I don't remember exactly what it was, but 1,314. On that. It took a little longer. I think that one closed about 4 months after the time we listed it. He referred me to a franchisee that has multiple units throughout Ohio, and we have since now closed another transaction with Jack in Ohio, who about the similar price point, similar rent, similar price points. It's based on a capitalization rate. And Jack was just shocked because Jack owned the building and he realized that he bought it for X, he improved it for Y, he had his business up and in place in there. He was in it all in at about $900,000 and was able to sell it at about $1.4 million. He was able to then infuse his business with capital, take that capital, deploy it into marketing, store growth, remodels, and new store acquisitions. And he was able to do that with the money. We will be listing another one of Jack's properties December, because we knew we have to wait until after January to sell that, because he wants to make sure he's owned it for at least a year so he doesn't get hit with the short-term capital gain rate. Okay. So we want to wait that at least that 12 months so he doesn't get hit with the short-term capital gain, because he's not going to 1031 exchange or reinvest the money. He will end up paying long-term capital gains on that.
He wants to reinvest those proceeds into
in the business.
In the business
he wants
assets.
To keep. Yeah, he wants to keep. And I don't give financial advice. I don't give tax advice. I don't give legal advice. And double check with this and make sure you clear it with a CPA and make sure you disclaim it equally when you talk about it, because you probably aren't any of those professionals either. when you're dealing with your client. But when a client like a Denny's franchisee looks at a sale leaseback, one of the things that goes through their mind is, okay, now I'm a tenant again, and I used to be an owner, but now I'm a tenant. Well, what's different for me? One of the things that's different for those tenants, as a tenant, they actually, it's on a triple net lease, they're paying as if they own it. They're paying the property taxes, they're paying the maintenance, they're paying all the insurance, just like they own the property. The only difference is someone else owns it. But that maintenance, every dollar of that maintenance that goes into it when they own it under a leasehold, or they operate under a leasehold, is deductible the year the money was spent at 100% of what they spent.
Right, as opposed to
As
depreciation
opposed
over
to
time.
depreciating it, which do you know what the straight line commercial depreciation is? How long did
39.
39 years. They have to depreciate that, which is really no help to an operator.
No.
I mean, it's the government penance. It's really sad, if you ask me.
So to recap, Steve, so far, you've got 4 listings closed plus
Yes.
the $10,000, so that's
Yes.
about $5 million in business.
Yes.
$5 million in volume, which
Yes.
is substantial for
Yes.
essentially one progressive line of client and referral.
Yes.
Really, 1 listing in the pipeline, and you kind of alluded last time that you have even more coming down
Yes.
the pipeline through your different connections that have spawned off of
The
this
same
particular one.
client, the original first tenant that I spoke to when I was retained by his landlord, is going to be introducing me to, and already has introduced me to other Denny's franchisees. They have a week-long corporate event next month in Orlando, Florida, where I'm going to be going and having a booth and basically being his guest. And he's going to make sure he takes me around and introduces me to as many people as he knows, and he's even offered to introduce me to the CEO of the company.
That's
when
huge.
you talk about, and remember, he was on the other side of the table from me. I was working against him, not for him, when I first entered his life. The question is, how did I do it? Did I
How
do
did
it
you do it?
professionally? Did I do it adversarially? Did I use arrogance with him? Did I try and use intimidation with him? Many people
would say
do.
no.
It's foolish. Absolutely not. No.
You know, you
I
once
wanted
told
to
me
work
do
with him.
business close-fisted or open-handed.
I did tell you that.
And you always do business open-handed.
Do it
And I
open-handed.
got to tell you, from what I've seen, that works.
Yeah. And when you need to show your cards, which a lot of times you do, show your cards. People understand business. They don't understand secrecy and manipulation. They don't like feeling manipulated. They don't like being bullied. They don't like being talked down to.
Right.
Like I've said before in other episodes of Office Hours, that there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And you have to be careful of it all the time. I mean,
Right.
I do, and I don't believe I'm an arrogant guy, but I'm sure I've come across that way at times, and I have to rein myself in and say, okay, what am I doing to come across like this?
So Steve, one last point here. Now, I know a lot of these people you're dealing with are not here in town.
No.
So you converted these people from basically a contact into 4 deals without meeting them in person. You've really done a lot of this over the phone.
I actually closed the first, second. Actually, I closed all 4 before I ever met Joe, face to face. Joe and Rusty is
You did that all on the phone, essentially, and
phone,
in email.
email, online, yes.
Which is astounding, because you always think that you need to sit in front of the client and be face to face.
Not always. Sometimes
This
it's
is
very
very
helpful. We
interesting.
should get into that too. In dealing with buyers, I think a face-to-face is required.
Right.
I do.
But for listings,
For listings, no, not always.
not necessarily.
No.
Wow.
No.
Perfect. Any last thoughts on this?
Nope, that's about what I would say on that portion. I think another time we should talk about marketing.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Well, that's all for today. I want to thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time at After Hours.